and I'm going to talk a little bit more about me. And I didn't prepare anything super technical today, so I'm looking to have more of a discussion of ideas of what things people are doing based on my experience and my experience with customers that I have worked with. So my name is Sandra. I live in Virginia, and I have been a consultant with Impact Technology. And what we do is your traditional consulting businesses for IT departments and IT companies. And we also have a team that's called the On Point team, which works a little bit different than your regular consulting company, which is companies can come in and buy this point, and they take this point they can use CAPEX money to allocate this point. And when they buy this points, we have like a catalog of services that we can do on their tools, on the tools that we support for them, based on this catalog. So if you want to have a user added to your system, we can add it for you. Well, that's going to cost you 10 points. The points are based on the consultant's hours and the consultant's pay. So they make like the calculations and come up with the points and put this points in a catalog that's then offered for the customer. And then we have a gigantic range from, again, configuring users all the way to implementation and customizations on tools, on cloud tools. And I have been working there and have been having, an interesting experience with customizing. I'm not a super technical person, but just configuring and understanding how we can get to the outcomes of customers, the customers want. So if you guys have questions, just any type of questions, just please let me know, and I can go from there. Anything that you want to talk about right now? I wanted to be more of like a question and answer kind of situation, more of like a unconstructed conversation that we can have. So yeah, maybe you can start the first topic, the first question.
Yeah, sure would. I'm Sandra. We have been used to developing custom software for each of our needs, business needs, technical needs, and now we're kind of at this crossroad where we've got these really powerful tools, and we no longer need servers, a server closet, a server admin, developers to do all this stuff. There's just all sorts of, cultural issues that swirl around this. There's, budget issues that swirl around this. The first thing that comes to mind is that it impacts, a lot of the technical people. If we're buying Salesforce, what are those .NET developers? What are those Java developers? What are they going to do? How can we get them trained up? We don't want to impact our economy. We don't want to impact the livelihoods of people. So that, something like that, I think we need to have some thought behind. And then some other things, maybe, before we would take a year or months to develop a system that was very catered to a business need. And, when we did that, it took time, it took a lot of money. And then, when that developer left, then you've got this, system that would be hard to upgrade and, to untangle all the spaghetti code associated with that. So now you've got, software as a service. It's somebody has developed it for us. And, we don't necessarily need a developer anymore. unless we need super duper fine-grained customizations. But at the same time, this SaaS may not meet all of our needs. It may meet 95% of our needs. How do we reconcile that? Do we need 100%? Maybe not. And then, finally, somebody like yourself, you're a cloud superhero. You're not necessarily a developer, but you're perfect for this new transformation where in order to embrace the cloud and customize the cloud, we need folks like yourself who have great people skills, who get the business requirements and who evolve with the customer, who does a crosswalk to ensure that technically what we're offering on SaaS meets the needs of our organization's mission. Walk us through how we can optimize this model of, instead of having custom development, having somebody like yourself who would customize a tool. And I'd also recommend that we kind of ask the folks on the call, what are some of your concerns? What are some of your struggles? And Sandra, give us your recommendation how we can resolve some of that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that you said that because one of the motives that we work by is that to meet the customer where they are at, one, and two, to focus on their outcome, right? What they are trying to get out of this tool. And I think that one of the main things that have changed from back in the day is that you have that person that is the IT person that sits down in a computer in a basement in the dark, or is that person that don't want to talk to anybody or don't want to just have the IT stereotype. And I'm pretty sure that people understand or know what I'm talking about. And that is something that we're starting to see less and less, because the people that are working for a customer, like a consultant, you need to have that people skills. You need to understand what the customer wants and it needs to get done. And I think that even if you deviate from being a person that is specialized on one thing or one language or one developing method, you can focus on pretty much having ITSM, right? The whole entire understand of ISO. You can retrain yourself into understanding what those things are or focusing on those things. So then helping the customer achieve the outcome that they need from the tool becomes easier, even if you don't have a full specialization on that developing method, on that tool. And they make it, I wouldn't say so easy, because obviously learning something new is never easy. But when you are taking this training classes for system administrator, or even a more knowledgeable developer or user or power user inside of a tool, they make this training really graspable and really easy to understand how you can implement the changes that need to be done to customize the tool for customers. At least this is what we do with the experience that I have. But I'm interested to learn also from other people on the call, what are some of the challenges that you guys go through with customizing tools, or even gathering requirements for customers. If that's something that you guys go through, we can discuss some of these issues. I just recently had to work for a financial institution, one of our customers, and they have this need to implement different SLAs internally. So what my job was to understand what they wanted done and configure those SLAs in the system for them to be able to use the tool. So as far as customization goes, it's possible of doing it. It's just you need to have the training. And I think that that's what it gets hard sometimes, because those trainings are pretty expensive if you go on your own.
So Sandra, one of the things that I kind of heard out there was, I think it was Tony,
Mm-hmm.
she mentioned reining in all the licenses and, maybe turning in licenses that weren't being used. I know there are tools out there that accommodate that. I think that's one topic that we should definitely look into. How do you feel about that world?
Tony, was that what your topic
Yeah,
is, your question?
it was, yeah, that was my question, but it's kind of reached into a lot of different areas, and I'm probably trying to accomplish too much with one approach, but I'm trying to not only, I'm getting an idea of all the licenses we have in Salesforce, in some of the other softwares that we integrate with, subscriptions that people purchase, even on just a corporate level, subscriptions to apps that may not be integrated with our system, but they purchase for business needs, different things like that. There's all the licenses and subscriptions and all that information, but it's also, I'm in the IT department, so we're doing a lot of technical tasks. And so trying to find a way to manage that as well, looking at a way to kind of corral. And I think I'm maybe trying to do too much. Maybe I'm going to have different tools to do different things, but also because I'm taking over since my boss was let go, I'm also taking over managing the budget, and when contracts and all these subscriptions come up for renewal. So it's kind of a combination of project management from a high level, but then also the actual technical management of a development project, where I have different developers on my team being able to communicate requirements to them and setting goals and end dates. And I'm finding we have a lot of software that does all the different things, but I'm really looking to try to find one that maybe does all of that, so that we can run analysis across the board. And when I'm doing budgets and I'm trying to evaluate, okay, well, we have these 3 subscriptions that do the same thing and they have X number of users, and one of these would be great for this project, so I can hook it into that project, do different things. I don't know if you have any suggestions. I know we've been looking at different things. We have Confluence with Asana, and we also have Jira and Smartsheets, and there's Trello. There's so many things out there for doing all these different things, and I don't know if you have any suggestions.
Yeah, there are a couple things. I'm not involved too much with the project management part of it. But internally in my company, we use Trello, which help us out a lot when maintaining the board. I have worked a little bit with ServiceNow, and they have great, visual workflows and workboards that, for the IT department at least, it has been, it's a real powerful tool.
What is that one?
ServiceNow.
ServiceNow. Okay.
Yeah, ServiceNow. It's very easy to configure, and it's super powerful, and it pretty much embeds all the IT areas. You can do configuration management with it. You can do service management with it, and I mean, it's a beast type of tool that englobes all IT. But on the user level, like when I'm working on something, on my company working on something, we have tried to use ClickUp, which didn't go so far for us. It wasn't too good, but Trello was a good project management tool that we found that, we can collaborate and interact. Not only that, but the Google Suite as well. We use.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we have some Google Sheets it's just taking on a new role and kind of corralling all this software and all this information into a usable format.
Have you tried to do, or does your company work with SharePoint? Because SharePoint, it's, it's a platform that will allow you to have pretty custom kind of platform for you and your users to have access to.
Yeah, we have SharePoint. We use Teams, and it connects up to OneDrive and creates SharePoint drives that we can share files on and different things like that. So we're doing a lot of that stuff internally, and we're finding that Microsoft Teams is nice because a lot of the companies that we're working with also have that too. So we can share documents and chat with each other and keep all that information together. So that's helpful. We're definitely going to stay with Teams for that approach, and working with a lot of different vendors. But I do want something for managing kind of all the vendors and all the software too. So, but those ServiceNow and Trello, I keep hearing more and more about Trello. That seems like something that I really probably want to go down. Thank you. That was
No
helpful.
problem. I was gonna ask you, I haven't worked with Salesforce, but you might be able to find inside of Salesforce um, a way where you can create those vendors and add those licenses to it. Um, so for instance, internally we use ShareWheel, right, which is a ticketing system. And what we have for our licenses, we configure our instances of ShareWheel to have those vendors as external customers, and then we have our licenses attached to it. So for instance, you would say, I don't know, I'm going to use Netflix as an example, right? Because you have a Netflix subscription. So you would have a record of somebody that is Netflix, and then you would have the license number and when this license expires. And what it does is you can create inside of the system a notification that will send you email when the time, you put a time frame. So if your subscription is going to expire in April, you can put a alert for March that will send you an email. Hey, your license is about to expire, and then you can filter by type of vendor or type of service that they are offering. So you can see how many people you have doing the same thing. So if you have Netflix and HBO Max and I don't know, Cinemax, you have all of those, but you really just want to have one. You can pull that type of report and it can show you. And since those tools kind of, I'm not going to say they work all the same way, but they have a lot of similarities in between them. I am pretty sure that that's something that you could explore. It might even be helpful for you to come up and say, hey, we have all this, but we really just need maybe one or two instead of needing one, two, and three. And now you are your department hero because not only you have, a clear view of what you are looking at and what you're paying for, but you can also suggest that things go or stay and you can save money for your company. Um, but we can connect more. I know this is a community, so we don't need to limit our experience here. We can talk about that more or share experiences and share um, knowledge of, for instance, I can look for Salesforce and see if that is a thing, and we can connect over there. Yeah, that would be a nice learning experience for me as well.
That's a good idea. I didn't, there's so many things going on. I keep looking for software to manage all the software when I guess maybe some of that can be managed actually within Salesforce, because Salesforce probably does a lot of that. So that was helpful. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Mike, I heard that you work for a consulting company as well. Um, what are some of your experiences in there that with cloud that is changing that you see changing the market for consulting?
For us, the biggest thing is we're seeing a lot of modernization. So we're seeing like really big projects come across where you still have people that are on mainframes or deprecating, things, stuff that's just old. So we do state work and things of that nature. And, you're seeing some folks that just haven't quite gotten around to modernization. And now, through kind of attrition, they're getting to the point where they need to modernize. So that's one area. The other big thing that I'd say is a big trend is folks really looking at hybrid type of architectures that are really changing how we need to train our people and prepare for the projects, because you have, not only is it good enough to be a subject matter expert in one cloud, so I focus on Azure, but then you have these folks that are saying, well, I'm going to put my analytics work and all my AI things over in Google because I like that tool set, but I have the majority of my enterprise over on Azure. So then you have this spread across, and then you say, well, I still have some stuff that's on-prem because I don't want to move it to the cloud, and those are processes, but I need to keep that in track too. So now you're starting to look at tool sets from a variety of vendors and looking at things like Azure Arc and Google Anthos to say, okay, I need a dashboard so that I can see what's happening. How much am I spending in each one of these clouds? How are my resources, on-prem? How are things behaving? So those setups are getting infinitely more complex. And as you spread across the cloud vendors, people searching for best of breed, saying, well, Google does analytics better, but Microsoft does better with integration, but I like AWS for, speed or whatever it is. So it's interesting consulting engagements now. When you go into a client, I almost prefer when they have an opinion, because you can kind of go and say, okay, great, we'll build on that. When you go in clean slate and they say, well, we don't know what to do, it changes the consulting engagement because you have to really start from square one and say, okay, what is it that you're trying to do? And really get a firm understanding of not only where they are now, but where are they trying to go and what cloud would do for them, so then it kind of breaks it down and saying, okay, what are you trying to move? Prioritize that, but what does the architecture look like? And you set them up with a strategic path that, in many cases it might take months or even years, depending on the organization, and then you're looking at change management. Because from an organization that's doing that type of thing, you have kind of more of an organizational change management type of mindset. It's similar to people trying to go from waterfall to agile or to go to DevOps. They're using tools and they're using language and processes that are not familiar to their staff. So, you're having to change culture, you're changing, tool sets, you're changing everything, sometimes all at the same time. So it can be a very difficult realm. You've got problems kind of from the C-suite all the way down to your most junior developer, but everyone's got a different angle on it that you've got to deal with.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And we have seen that happening. We do a lot of work with federal, and they need to be more modern, and they need to move on, and there is so many barriers and things, and takes so long in even adoption. When we go in and we do a new implementation, it's so hard to get the adoption because everybody's kind of looking at it on their own perspective, and everybody wants to do what they are used to, and they expect those tools to behave with or similarly to what they already had or the experience that they had before, and get that through is a real challenge. So what we do, we try to focus in the communication and in enablement and enablement of those folks that are going to be working on the tool. Usually when we do an implementation, we will go down to the company or the headquarters. Now it's a little bit different with COVID because we're not actually going physically anymore, but we are going to them in developing these workshops that enable the system administrators the IT directors or the main service desk manager, and enable them to do small tweaks or changes that they might not have the specialization on that tool to do, even though they are, very smart and very capable people, but they don't have that training. So we kind of like interact with them as the trainers from whatever tool they are buying, and help them out with that. So communication is one of the main things that you need to have with the customer on this environment when changes are happening like that. So they make sure that they are enabled to use the tool and to move forward and to have a good relationship with the tool they just bought. The saddest thing is when they spend all this money to implement something and they look back and people are not using it, and it's just going to waste, or they don't have the best of what they could get out of what they just purchased. And as
Yeah,
somebody
the change management that is I've tell our people a lot of times, because we have different kind of practice areas at the consulting firm. So I'm in what we call our system integration. So I'm kind of the architect, tech nerd, kind of UN peacekeeper role, where I can kind of sit in between people and make sense of it all. But a lot of what I tell our folks now is, these cloud engagements are almost as much change management, kind of managing consulting type of engagements rather than purely technical. I was like, the technical for me, it's easy. A lot of times you're mapping requirements to something that can or cannot do a thing, so it's a little bit more binary in that realm, and you have some choices, obviously. But the change management part and the culture change is far more difficult to change people's minds than it is to, just say, okay, well, I can change your storage. I can put it up in the cloud, and here's how you connect to it. Great, I'm done. But to get them to use it and adopt these new things, especially for, like I said, when you're dealing with folks that have been doing, mainframe or a certain type of programming for the better part of 10 and 20 years, that's a shock to the system sometimes to try and get that. So it's a very careful approach to, train and to communicate the change and how it's going to change somebody else's job, and, and get folks to understand their role is just as viable. We're just kind of moving the cheese a little bit to a different data center, it's,
and people can get really
and that's a key point.
People can get really animated about what you're saying, right? Like, it's changing. So people can get really, you need to be very like tactful on how you do those things, and explain those to them. So what you're saying is, it makes a lot of sense, and it makes me giggle a little bit, because it's true. People get, animated about it. Awesome. I saw a couple of new people that joined. Would you guys like to bring up a topic or anything that you would like to go through? I see we have me, Jay, Marsha, Todd, Daniel, Patrick. You guys just hopped in, but if that is anything that you guys would like to talk through, or we can bring it up.
Hey, this is Daniel. I was actually really interested in what Mike was saying about how, kind of migrating to the cloud is really just change management. And I never really thought about it that way, but, you're totally right. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things that we have focused on the last year is to really, as consultants and as a consulting company, bringing the results of the tools to our customers, which was something that we started to do in the IRS. And it's more than just a monitoring. It's really understanding how the tools and the metrics inside of the tools are working, and are working for the customer. So we created these reports and this dashboard that we deliver to the customers on a monthly basis, and even going as far as trying to give them. Do you guys? I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. Is it Whoop? Whoop app, which is like a workout app. So what they do is you work out, and it's like a band that you put it on your wrist, and you work out with the app, and the app gives you certain insights of what do you have to do, how long you have to sleep. And what we're trying to accomplish is that we can go to the customer and suggest and try to walk the customer through what they need to do for their tool to perform to the best of their ability. And through this dashboard and through this report, it's something that we found it's it's very well accepted by the customers when they receive this report. Say, hey, here's how your servers are behaving, here's how your tool is behaving, here's your metrics for this month, your availability, your performance. This is what we suggest you to do next with your tool in order to improve your usability, in order to improve your overall satisfaction with the tool. And it has been very, very well accepted by the customers. They get thrilled when they receive that. And our goal is to walk towards more and more understanding how we can anticipate that customer need for that software, for that tool that we're implementing for them.
Sandra, I thought it was really interesting. I mean, our session here was really, developers are going to become, not looking for the missing semicolon anymore. We're going to be configuring these tools, but, something that Mike had said, kind of even takes that up a notch and projects, well, what about architects, the higher level technical people? They're actually evolving into strategists. They're evolving into, you mentioned the word communicators, Sandra, trainers. Some of these roles require communication skills, they require people skills, and we may not, us techies may not be 100% ready for that type of role, and we need to be ready because this food is already baked, it's already cooked for us, and we need to be like kind of what Tony's doing. We need to be strategic in terms of the tools we use. We need to be financial in terms of being cost conscious and getting the right tool for the right need. We need to, in terms of the financial aspect, we also may need to, have that conversation with somebody who's got that little fiefdom of a system that they've been getting a budget for doing, but it's going to be overtaken by some kind of, SaaS tool. So, those kind of people skills will kind of come into play. So I think it's not just, the lower level technicians that, that will need to evolve. We had an attendee who says, hey, I need to evolve from Java to the cloud. But we have, higher level architects that are kind of undergoing this professional transformation as well.
Yeah, and one of the things that we need to consider too is that I feel like that those departments are getting it smaller, and it gets cheaper sometimes to outsource those resources, that come from outside. So there is I feel like there might be a lot of tension in the way of people look at it. Like, okay, I might end up losing my job. because now my company is outsourcing this resources, to a consultant or to companies that are going to come out and be doing that. But one of the things that we saw with the pandemic is that a lot of companies were just not ready. They were just not even ready to take, the need or the demand for IT and the internet and the internet services. They were just in the beginning of the COVID era, it was like a struggle for people. So there was a lot of demand for people to learn these new skills as far as getting into an IT position with soft skills and talking and teaching and being more customer service oriented than they were before when they were just focused on technology. And there is a lot of opportunity out there for people that want to train and then they have that. Is it something that you can acquire? It's arguable, right? Some people are going to say, yeah, those are the soft skills you can acquire maybe through experience. But I feel like the more companies push towards having people that are more like customer service agents that can actually config those tools, people would feel more of the need of being less shelled in more of like customer service oriented, I could say. That came to me more as from when I was working with hospitality than anything else, right? Because working with hospitality, I had to be focused on customer service. And then now that was actually one of the things that helped me get into IT. For funny as it is, right? One would think that is a technical knowledge, but one of the things that my company focus on is to gather people that have more customer service skills and soft skills, because everything else can be trained. And they want people that can go out there and talk to the customers and sit down with the customers and develop those strategies with them. And that's super important.
For sure.
And I can say from developers, the one thing that I had hurdles getting people over in the still fighting this to some degree, but some developers going from their typical web developer role to going into the cloud. In a lot of cases, there are things just to do some simple development things in the cloud that like networking or bits and pieces that typically would be like, an IT ops type of position. But in some cases, just to stand up a virtual machine in the cloud and have a public IP address and, securing various things, all of a sudden it was bringing in a lot of different skill sets that were not typically heaped on the developer themselves, but all of a sudden to become a cloud developer, even people that were kind of confident developers realized that there was a whole other stack out there that they needed to pick up to even kind of talk the same language, just to stand up some of these services. If you weren't using the platform as a service, if you were dealing with the infrastructure as a service, all of a sudden you had the keys to the kingdom, so to speak, if you had a subscription to a cloud, and then you kind of say, okay, what next? So getting some folks confident in that and saying, well, yes, you're going to have to stretch a little bit and understand how the cloud works. You never really thought about the fact that when you saved something to disk, that it actually cost money, or that if you saved something to a database, it actually cost money. If you, pushed it to a database or read it back out, each one of those actually has a cost associated with it. So when you're dealing with on-prem resources, it was like, I'll just save my stuff over here. Now, all of a sudden you get a bill for it and you're like, oh, wait, that's an interesting, there's a cost model to, the cloud that a lot of folks never really associated with it. So that again is kind of that flipping from the, a capital expenditure of just saying, I'm going to buy a server that's going to last for 5 years, to the operational expenditure of, no, I'm going to get you a bill on a monthly basis of how many times you access that one file sitting out there. And these were kind of the cultural shifts that people are starting to figure out, oh, wow, I need to really pay attention to which buttons I'm clicking because they actually do have a fair amount of cost associated with it. Making sure I pick the right size of a virtual machine or the right database and put it in the right region to make sure that I'm not crossing some global boundary that has different data protection laws. So there's some interesting things as you work with teams that you'll figure out. Each project brings kind of a new wrinkle to it that you run into a team that never really thought of things like that before. You have to kind of find those areas and say, okay, this is how you prepare yourself for it.
Oh, Sandra, are you on mute? Sandra, you on mute?
Yes, I was on
Okay.
mute. I'm sorry.
No worries.
I was just listening to what Mike was saying, and there's a lot of different little costs that implies sometimes people don't know. So, like my experience is that my company will offer this management kind of contract. So, if you would have a software that we implemented. So, our high consultants or delivery consultants will go to your company and they would, do all the architecture for you. And once that is implemented, they have a team that manages the tool for you. So you don't even need to have, obviously you will have somebody inside, right? But you don't need to have specialized people in your team because you can contract um, that managing services from us. So for what Mike was saying, sometimes people want to do things and they end up getting charged for whatever they are doing, and it's funny because people want things done, but when you tell them, hey, this is going to cost this, or if you use this you're going to have to pay extra, um, they don't sometimes they don't know, and you need to just remind them, and it's kind of like a dance. Hey, do you want this customization done? Yes, we can do it for you, but that's going to cost some extra money, not only that which you're paying already, but more on top of that.
Yeah, the policies right now, so that's another hot topic of working with some large organizations of policies and governance. So creating kind of these landing zones for um, companies that you say, okay, we're gonna make sure that we'll carve out these landing zones to make sure that as you're pushing resources up into the cloud, you're doing them in a standard way for the company, that your security is applied the same, role-based access. You're picking the right sizes only because we've provided you a template to kind of minimize you from making bad choices. So we've seen a fair amount of that in our consulting engagements, of just making sure that how much can we kind of put some policies in place to provide those training wheels, particularly for those that are starting out, that you don't make mistakes up front like that. And that really is kind of more of that communication up front of saying, okay, look, you're not just going to spin up a subscription to your favorite cloud provider and just start pushing stuff up there. You're going to fail. You're going to get a bill that you don't like. So this is how we're going to slow you down. We're going to do it the right way. We're going to think about what you're doing, how you're doing it. We're going to do it in a standardized way so that you don't get this kind of shadow IT effect of people just kind of spinning up resources on their own because, well, this solved my problem, so I'm just going to do it. And then the CFO gets the bill and says, well, no, we're not going to do that anymore, and you're fired. So yeah, that's something that we're starting to see quite a bit of, is people saying we're all in the cloud. We just want to make sure that we're standardizing. When we have a team, especially now, a team that may be spread out, we may not see them all the time. They may be working from home, working in different places, working across the globe. How do we make sure that we standardize our usage of the cloud to make sure that we're doing it consistently and we can monitor what's actually happening, keep eyes on it? So those are the key points to make sure that people aren't going willy-nilly and just saying, we'll spin it up, biggest instance out there, and forget to turn it off and say, okay, yeah, you just got a $25,000 bill because you spun up the biggest supercomputer analytics in Google, and now you're going to pay for it.
Mike, I think you're working in a great field. It sounds like you're in the consulting field.
Yes.
And everybody needs light. Everybody's a pioneer, and I think people tend to gravitate to experts and consultants because, like you said, the skill set may just not be quite there. But I'm sure in the consulting world, you do still have competition. How do you, separate your consultants? And feel free to pitch your company as well to the, attendees here. How do you differentiate your company in terms of, trying to convince somebody to go with you guys?
A lot of, so I work for a CapTech consulting. So we've got 8 offices across the US. I've actually been with the company since 2001. So I was actually the 53rd employee. So I've had the benefit of watching them grow. We're now close to 1,200 consultants across the board. And one of the things that we offer and that we do well is being able to offer a breadth of consulting services. We don't go in with kind of prepackaged ideas. So from the cloud side, I'm the head of our what we call our cloud service offering. So I'm responsible for kind of training our people, but also what's our go to market strategies and things of that nature. And we have our methodologies that we use for cloud projects of various sizes, but we don't go in thinking that just because we're an AWS partner and a Microsoft partner and a Google partner, we don't go in basically pitching these automatically and just say, well, this is an Azure project. We have a very careful approach of going in and making sure that we do our due diligence and assessing, what is it that the client actually needs, and offering those services, not just in our system integration and the technical side, but as we've kind of talked about tonight, we have an entire data analytics practice that can help out with the data side. We've got an entire management consulting arm that can deal with all the change management and the QA and the testing and the business analysis part of it that is so critical to these roles. We also have a CX department that does anything, user interface and customer experience driven. So we have a breadth of services that we can apply to all of those, which, even though we all kind of at our fields of expertise, we're able to work together in those teams. And because this projects, especially when you're dealing with massive transformation or modernization, it does cut across all of those, so you're talking to different levels of the organization sometimes at the same time, but your messages are different. So that's one of the things that I think we bring is just an open mind. We don't basically go into a playbook and say, okay, we're doing another cloud engagement, turn to page 1, we're going to run it down, right? So there's plenty of consulting firms that are out there that are in their niche and they do what they do, and that's great, and that works for sometimes. But that's not how we approach our projects, and we really look to try and partner with the people that we're working with and don't look at it like we're punching a clock. We like to kind of embed ourselves with those teams and kind of get in the trenches, so to speak, to make sure that we feel and we understand what they're going through so we can address those needs and, consult on their terms, not just come in and just basically impose our will upon them.
That's the way to do it. Yeah. I mean, I think, sometimes we kind of like make fun of that prototypical blue chip consultant. But I think in the world of the cloud, we need the blue chip consultant even more than ever now, to have that strategic view of things, to have the communications aspect, to have, collaboration. We need our consultants more than ever now. And I put Mike's company on our chat as well, if you need to reach out to him.
Yeah, I think that
Thank you.
aspect of connecting to the customer and understanding what they need and how to build that and how to bring that to them. It's such an important aspect of the consulting business today. Um, as Mike said, there's some people that act only on their niche, but I think that that is not gonna. I don't think that that's gonna last long, if you ask me, because people are, people want to have their issue or what they want to accomplish heard, and work from that point on, and not the other way around.
Yeah, and that's our motto is basically others talk, we listen. That was their little catchphrase, but I find it's true. I've always been a little bit more of an introvert, and being kind of a programmer, I've always been one to kind of sit in the room and listen first before I offer my opinion. But it turns out that that's actually a really good skill when you're working with the client. There's a time to talk, and there's a time to sit and listen and make sure that you hear what it is that they're actually saying to you. And sometimes it's not what they say, it's how they say it. And sometimes it's not what they don't say, in a particular group of people that can inform you on what their real problem is. So it's kind of an interesting set that I've always kind of geared toward technology, but the longer that I'm in consulting, the more I realize that the personal skills, and being able to read body language, being able to communicate to, the C-suite all the way down through the developers, and changing that communication style is absolutely key to being successful and being kind of a trusted partner that people will sit and talk to you and not treat you like the Bobs. Like, I'm going to talk to this guy and I'm going to get fired tomorrow. That's, that's everybody's fear, right? So that's really the kind of where we are trying to approach it and say, we want to partner with you. We don't want to come in here and just basically tell you what to do and then leave. That's rarely is that successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing and I will have to go soon. So the last thing that I just wanted to say, it's so interesting that you said that, Mike, because um, working with different kind of customers, and you see that communication skills, and just really just sitting down and being able to deliver to them. So when one day, or at one point of your partnership with that customer, you are going to be able to show, and they are able to show to their bosses how much of an impact that did for the company. And then you have somebody that is feeling really good about the work that you help them to do on the other side, and then they are going to actually come and say good things about you and recommend your work on the other side of their own contacts and everything, because now they know that they can count on you because you work with them and you have that interaction. Some people become even friends, with you, or on your journey, on your career. um, at the consulting company that I work for, we have at least three people that came from the customer side. That they were consulting, we were consulting for them, and then at one point when the project ended, they're like, you know what, we like you guys so much. You did so much for our company. You did so much for helping develop this project, that I want to work for you. They come and work for you.
It's the best compliment, right?
Right?
Yep.
This is a good thing. So thanks everybody. CL, I don't know if you're going to continue with the call, but thank you so much for the invitation. Um, it was so good to be able to interact with everybody. I did put my LinkedIn on the chat, and I'm looking forward to connect even more and with more folks. If you have anything for me before I go, please let me know.